Welcome back to House General and Housing. We are on this Thursday, February 27th, continuing our committee discussion of a committee housing bill. We are now on page 18 of draft 4.1, which is posted on our site. And it's the land bank report, which is at line 6 and following. And as the committee may remember, one of our concerns was what to do with a fairly substantial number of houses in Vermont that are abandoned or derelict, completely derelict and uninhabited. And one of the ways that emerged to deal with this is the creation of a land bank. And coincidentally, a report came out from DHCD just about a month ago on land banks. And it's clear from the report that there are all kinds of possibilities. And in fact, that a land bank could do more for housing than just, this is at page 18.
Thank you.
It could do more for housing than just deal with abandoned houses. But that we really weren't anywhere near a place where we craft an actual legislation creating a land bank, because there were too many unanswered questions. And so this section asks for a report. And one of the concerns, just to reprise, that was requested is that the report not only look at a statewide land bank, but look at the relationship between, it also look at local land banks, and that it look at a potential relationship, a kind of tiered relationship between the statewide land bank and local land banks, in such a way as to make sure that everyone in the state, including the rural areas of the state, benefit from this. So that is the way this is drafted. And it requests that DHCD produce this on or before November 1. I am unaware, we've had testimony supporting this. I am unaware of any objection to the report or the November 1 date. And I'd like thoughts of the committee.
Yeah, I'd like to learn more about land banks as well. So it'd certainly be a good way to do that.
Yeah, knowing their recommendation before we get into the session so that we can actually draft something,
You have an additional,
I think would be great.
yeah. Oh, do you mean?
No, the date and the fact that it's it looks like a simple request that they should be able to do by November 1. And a good starting point for getting something into next year's session, so it is not another year down the road.
Right. I mean, I think that, well, I just feel generally, I agree with you. I feel this urgency. And I don't want us to do anything stupid. And just, I think that with respect to our prior discussion, it was emphasized that rushing might lead us to do something stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, I think it doesn't. Debbie, did you have a comment?
Well, I do have a concern about, because I know like in our community, I mean, it's just one person, but like they're looking for, a property that needs a lot of help. And he doesn't have a high paying job right now. So he's thinking I could get into something that needs a lot of work, I'll just say where I am now. And, when I can afford things, because he can, build. And I'm just, like how fast is this land bank going to be grabbing up real estate when there's people out there that do want to get involved in bringing back properties?
I think from my own experience, I have an opinion about that, but just, Debbie, my opinion.
That's fine.
My opinion is the way these land banks work is passive isn't the right word. They don't run around grabbing parcels. They wait for people like the local town to come to them. Remember that or the last thing they want to do it, they're not going to go out and condemn stuff like that. They want the local government or local, very often a local landowner will come to them and say, I would like help rehabilitating this property, but I just can't do it myself.
Right.
Other comments or thoughts about this section, Saudia or Elizabeth? This land bank report request.
No, I'm good.
I'm also good.
All right. I'm going to, just for the moment, due to the complexity and the situation, on appeals, I'm going to move beyond appeals for the moment. And that, we all know the issues and we've had testimony on the subject. I think Judge Zone's testimony was very interesting. And we will talk about that, but I guess let me talk a little bit about what we do next. The problem with the energy, here we go with a certain frustration of mine, which I can share. One of our problems is getting something out of here, out of the house. No, out of the committee structure of the house. By the 14th. And as I've mentioned, the deadline for all policy committees is the 14th. I mean, that's theoretically extendable, but it's not something that I certainly would volunteer to do. The deadline for the money committee, mainly Ways and Means and Approach, is a week later, the 21st. What I am told is the various provisions we have that deal with taxes can get in and out of Ways and Means in time. And the various provisions that we have, which are quite a few for approach support, can get to approach on time. Getting in and out of any other committee on time is a real problem. Because if we say we adopt this on Tuesday, what's the date of Tuesday? The day we come back is the what?
The 11th?
The 11th. That would leave 3 days for any policy committee. The Energy Committee, I have talked to the chair of the Energy Committee as to whether a simple, quick, what we call anachronistically a drive-by would work, and I was assured it would not. So what I would like to do for as much as I deeply care about these energy provisions, and we may revisit this tomorrow when I know more, but at the moment, I would like to skip the energy just for time's sake.
Yeah, in case we have other
Right.
things to go.
And I'd also like to skip for just a moment brownfields. Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about.
Okay, so brownfields is at the moment, it's going to be in the Senate bill that comes. So I think it's fine if we do it well. The Senate bill proposes an extra large, it proposes a funding, it proposes a total of $6 million in funding in a combination of grants and appropriations to various sources. And what we elected to do in our letter to approach was not deal with it. We just dealt with the $2 million that's in the governor's budget. But as I mentioned to you before, and I appreciate any comments you have on this, the two of us met with the chair and the vice chair of Senate Commerce and Housing and Commerce. We met with the Secretary of A&R and with Matt Chapman, who runs this program. And the reason we kind of loaded it up with all the heavies, if you will, I'll refer to my vice chair as a heavy, and Randy Brock also, is we really wanted to impress upon them that we were serious. And we explained to them that we just felt like this program needed some real serious look to make it shorter and easier to get through. We specifically said that we'd heard testimony that this was a real barrier to housing development and contributed to unwieldiness. Somewhat to my surprise, not necessarily, I'll speak for myself, not expecting very much, we found the meeting was pretty productive. And out of it came several specific ideas, which are in this, embedded in this. One specific idea was that they give preference to cleanup involving housing. That's one thing. Now you have to understand, that's not without a cost in the sense you just heard Zone's testimony. It means that a manufacturing, something that has to do with manufacturing might come in and get bumped to a lower level because the housing development gets first. Giving preference doesn't, it's not totally like cut and dry. I mean, I think his example is, I bet anything that if the program had to deal with like a single family house versus a huge industrial park, they would prioritize the single family house. But as a general matter, they're asked to prioritize health. They agreed to that. The second was that they give us a serious study and look at it very carefully about how they can change their process. Basically, we emphasized to the secretary and to Mr. Chapman that we would rather not wade into the guts of their regulations ourselves and make whatever decisions we made ourselves if they were willing to do it themselves in the form of a recommendation to us. They agreed to that. That study is in there. There were several other ideas that came up that they're going to do themselves. They can just do. So would you like to add anything?
Yes. I think it was a great meeting. I'm happy to see this in this bill. It's something I do support. And I've mentioned it to you, Chair. I guess I'm a little confused why we're talking about brownfields and not talking about appeals, because it's going to go to the same committee. So it sounds like there's a problem with appeals. And that's a concern for me. So I don't know why we would be talking about this and not appeals.
Not because they're related, but because of where they're going.
Yeah.
Right.
If it's truly a problem with just a drive-by, maybe we shouldn't be talking about brownfields.
Second, one of the things I want to do, what's a little confusing about this is there's an awful lot included in here that isn't new. I don't think, I guess I'm going to have to ask Life Council. I don't know why some of this is in here. It's just like the whole section. But if you look at the top of page 29, C at the top of page 29 is where the priority, I'm just telling everybody where the language is the prioritization, and the report is right below it.
That was my one question area. Was the goal in prioritizing this or citing of new housing or the cleanup of prior housing sites?
If we just use the word housing, it would be both. We could make it very clear if we wanted to.
I would lean towards more clarity just because as I read it, we are prioritizing sites that contain housing at the moment.
Well, then we should say, would you like it to be both?
I'm asking and I wasn't privy to, I wasn't part of those conversations.
It wasn't that, we didn't get to it.
There wasn't any of it.
No, I don't think, I
We
think,
didn't have a specification of clarity on that.
Well, then I would guess I'd ask everyone's, do you want, like, if that's, I'm just reading this as the site
Yeah,
to
the
be
way it's written.
prioritized has to contain housing,
Contains housing.
I see.
not, it could be an empty lot that we are putting housing.
Yeah, so it should be contains housing or proposed housing development.
Yeah. If that was the goal.
I think it should be the goal. And it's outside.
Look at that.
Just, yes, go ahead.
So there's a lot of phases to this cleanup, right? Like there's phase one, phase two, phase.
Yeah, it's a long process.
Yeah, so I think that's what I was looking at, like how. I mean, if your property, we'll put it in quotes, is clean, like they're doing phase one, they don't find anything, phase two. Is this like 100% funded or is it, does the landowner put money in also?
Yes. My experience is that this is my own experience, having gone through it with one project. There's a requirement. First of all, there's a whole process called RELA, which is CAPS, and it basically, you enter the RELA program and sign on, and what that does is give you freedom from liability. It means they can't change the standard on you, that kind of thing. It's a good thing to do, and we did it, but you have to jump through a few hoops. But then the requirement is that you do an analysis, phase one, a very simple analysis, and then if they discover something, phase two, a more detailed. The phase one can be a few $1,000s, but phase two could be $15,000. And then if there's really a need for a cleanup or ongoing monitoring, that can be even more expensive. That requirement's a regulatory requirement, it doesn't deal with funding. My experience was there's a lot of funding out there and that we had an old underground storage tank to take out. And the process was entirely paid for from state and federal grants, which they found and did for us, they being A&R. But we had to pay like somewhere between 10 and 15,000 bucks to take out and dispose of the tank. I don't. This is pretty focused on making it shorter and more efficient. It doesn't deal with the funding issue. The only hesitation I had in reviewing this was not, by the way, the committee to go through. For some reason, I've heard a long time ago that this wasn't a problem. I don't know why. I'd have to look at it. But my hesitation was it's in the Senate, it was a Senate bill. So if it was a problem here, I know it's going to be in the Senate. It wouldn't be. Don't ask me why, because the Senate has an environment committee and a commerce and housing committee. Don't ask me why that wouldn't be a problem in the Senate, but that's what I heard from. But that doesn't deal with your underlying question, which I get.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, I've been supportive of it. I think it's great that it's in the bill, but if we're overall concerned about any part of this bill going to environment,
Then we'd have to take it out. Yeah.
I think that's a mistake.
Yes.
think that's a big mistake.
I would agree. That's why I think it should be in.
So I also think appeals should be in.
Appeal should
I
be
think
in.
the what should be in?
Appeals,
Um,
I don't think anyone thinks in here that it shouldn't be in.
yeah, I'd like to clarify that. I think, I mean, we heard testimony from Judge Sonnet indicating that perhaps it's a little less urgent than I thought, the appeals part, because he asserts that they're already, giving priority, but I think that my feeling is it's never hurts to be clear in legislation. That's one thing. Also, he testified that that the standing provision we're talking about has already been put into judge-made law, but it's not an appellate opinion, and I don't think it would hurt to codify it. Although I think we have to change the language a little bit, how we did it. And I'm sure we could work with Ellen to get that done.
I've also printed off the opinion as well.
Oh, great. So, but in terms of the brownfields itself, am I hearing that the committee's okay with it? A lot of head nodding in here, Saudia.
I just-
Yes, go
I
ahead.
just have one question, and I can't find where it is. What you said before, the preference to housing,
Yeah,
is there a way so that it's clear that what you had said about if they were building something else, the possibility of whatever they were building and a certain amount of housing be included in that?
right. I have here that I would ask Ledge Council to add the words contains housing or proposed housing development.
Okay,
So I'm going to, if I don't, I'm gonna check this off. It doesn't-
You're checking it off as in keeping it in, right? To be
Yes.
clear? Okay.
Absolutely. Okay,
But nothing's done until it's done, so obviously I think if
Yeah,
people
right.
have.
yeah. If something occurs to you later, not too much later. I really think we want to, by the way, be in the position if we can, we want to be in the position so that when we come back from break, we're just voting, we don't have to go through the whole thing, again, but that's ideal. Okay, all right, what I don't understand here, and I got to talk to Ledge Council about, I'm just holding this for everybody so they know. There's a lot of language in here besides the two things that I just pointed out, and I don't know if that's just because it's existing law and more was underlined than should have been, or what it is. Do you know?
where in particular?
Well, there's so much extra, in other words.
Too many words?
Is there more about this than needs to happen?
Yeah, then these,
May go much
I just.
more
That's a good
quickly.
flag.
That's
Yeah,
environment.
I'm just saying, I gotta check with Ledge Council about that. Okay, we've done the VHFA offsite construction report on page 30. And then we get to section, page 31 at the very bottom, Department of Housing and Community Development positions. And then it goes on to appropriations. And I think is consistent with the governor's budget and what we put in it just counts the positions.
Very supportive.
Yeah. B was the residential services. Right? It's resident general fund purposes of funding two existing limited service positions for 2 years, providing technical assistance to municipalities, nonprofits, and private developers for development of infill and missing middle. This is to two more of the Maura, do you know what this is referring to in B on page 32? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, with A, didn't we want to know what those positions are?
I think they are,
Maybe Alex can clarify this afternoon.
yeah,
I think I understand it now, it's clarified this afternoon, but this is a couple of positions for the VHIP and MER program.
yeah, that's what I think it is.
V is the homes for all that Chris Cochran spoke to you
Oh,
about.
that sounds wrong. Okay. Yeah, these are just another way of saying what we heard and what we put in our letter. These are positions. Let me call up our letter just a second here. Where did I put that file?
So those three are basically, because those programs have been in session while those are kind of like part-time.
Yeah, and they're,
And we re-up it, and continue to have work now that it's being, okay.
I recall.
And those were in the governor's budget.
Here in the governor's stuff. The appropriations section is not complete yet. The appropriations section, I'm not sure. I think I want to wait. What I've asked Legend Council to do is go through our letter to appropriation and make sure that everything matches up, because it doesn't in this draft. And then go over it, and so hopefully we'll be able to do that either this afternoon or tomorrow morning. Is that okay? Do we wait on you? There is one. Where is the DSP? There's something new that's kind of programmatic, and Tom, would you explain on page 34
Yes. I will own my,
and 5?
I'll own my error.
But you told Cameron that, right?
I have sent it to
Okay.
Cameron, yes.
Okay, this will all be corrected, but
Yeah.
that's new, so tell everybody what's involved.
On line 13, page 34, the sum of 149,500 is corrected to be 448,500 to the Department of Labor. This is for a grant to Associated General Contractors to be used over a span of 3 years, which I understand is the way we do appropriations in this year's budget, and there's language in there to indicate that it is for this 149,500 spread each year for 3 years, but.
But we'll tell her, we haven't discussed this, so you want to talk about what it is and.
Okay, the whole thing, yes. So the Associated General Contracting, there are a couple of contractors associations in the state. The AGC has a very robust training program that is completely open to the public. It's quite affordable. It turns out VSAC loans and grants apply to their training as well as state colleges. And they address a lot of the areas of construction that state colleges don't. The state colleges, specifically with our proposal, would cover the 3 that require licensure in Vermont. So plumbing, electric, and HVAC. Currently, to get HVAC certified, you have to go to Massachusetts to get the refrigerant certification. That's part of it. We don't have in the state program. AGC has a very good recruiting effort, and this is one of the sticking points in the workforce development, is that the population we're drawing from is smaller. We have 20 or 30 years ago, 20% of our students went into the trades. That is still true, but we don't have as many students. So this in part helps them draw from the students that are currently in CTE programs Employers that have found employees that need training, they can take their training. They're very portable. They can take their training all over the state. And the advantage of working through both the technical college and AGC is that they are tapping into students who already have a place to live in Vermont. Employers in the construction sector have the same workforce issues that others do. One is finding capable, trained people. The other is, can they find a place they can afford to live? So the CTE programs, which both of these work with, these are both high school and adult learners, and they're people who are already in state. So yeah, they may have to live with mom and dad for a little bit longer, but they're here and we can get them into a career and, you know, build the housing that they need as much as anybody else. They have worked with the Department of Labor before, and they've received grants from the Department of Labor before. So they already have an established relationship and mechanism to make that happen. So that is the nutshell.
What is the 448 going to be used for?
I can break that down further. They have, there is one paid position to help with the recruiting essentially. So they're promoting programs and recruiting programs, and the events that they hold to bring people into the trades is something that the people in their office currently would just, it would be, that was the first thing that they mentioned. So we really need somebody to devote to this. They have hundreds of training programs and events, I should say, in the next few months, all of which I think could accommodate more students if they were recruiting them. They already have the training program. There is some additional training to license electrical and I believe it's plumbing trainers. So additional staff to actually do the training is on their list. And then you get the various materials, a pretty detailed breakdown that I got, but the materials for recognition at the end of the programs and what needs to go into a recruiting event are largely there.
This is just for the committee. Remember, we had substantial testimony, actually from multiple people. Some of it quite dramatic statements, others less so, but they all added up to that we have a desperate need for more people in the trades, including carpenters and.
Very desperate.
Yeah. And so the question is, what could we do about that? And preliminary, our first cut at it are these two recommendations. One is a 373,000
to state colleges.
State colleges, and then this. The only thing I can say about it is that normally programs, yet again, another committee. Normally where these programs live is over in Commerce. And so I guess there's some possibility that we may just ship this over to Commerce.
Bill.
As a bill, and that they will take care of it. They're have you talked to them? Or the chair or?
Yes, but not the chair
Who?
yet.
Edie? Franny?
I'm gonna fail this quiz. I can't remember the name.
A woman?
I can point them out in the lineup.
Okay. Is them
They're committee member.
do they sit at the head of the table next to the chair?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
So, it should be.
I think we need to nail that down
Okay.
because with respect to the Commerce Committee, given that we've had several joint hearings and my conversations with the chair, I think Representative Marcotte, I have confidence that with respect to the things that we care about, the infrastructure financing and this, that we will get action from them. I don't think it will be before crossover. In other words, it would be in response to the Senate bill, which will contain, but the Senate bill will not contain this. So we need to, I could try to get this in the Senate bill through Senator Clarkson. I can ask her, but I think we need to talk there with Marcotte.
Okay.
And make sure that they really are okay with it. He sounded very enthusiastic, actually. So,
No, I should add probably too that the AGC covers a lot of the topics that don't require certification. So basic carpentry, safety, all the OSHA courses that are relevant, and a whole wide range of things that State College doesn't. They kind of cover the rest of it.
But they're already housed.
Well, where they do the recruiting is largely in state.
Okay.
So if somebody's in a CTE program already in Vermont, the high school or adult learner level, they live there somewhere.
Mhm.
And they may have to find housing or transportation to get to a job site or an employer. The only, and they're funded elsewhere, but the student conservation, Vermont's student conservation
Corps.
they're the one organization I talked to, and they have funding for what they do elsewhere. They're the one organization that has building projects that attract people from out of state. They have a substantial number of people from Vermont participating in their programs and decide they want to stay.
Mhm.
And if they find a place to plug in, that's the trick right there. But this may be a connection for them.
at this point, I think we've gone about as far as we can go, pending decisions with other committees, which I'm going to try to do. And we have at our next event, if you will, is we have the afternoon to talk about the bill. I think we've been through much of the bill the first time around. But there are outstanding issues, and I'm going to ask, Sean is going to come and testify at 1:30. So I think, why don't we convene at 1:30, but don't be late. Say reconvene at one. Try to be here by 1:15, everybody, so we can really start at 1:30.
So we got an extra.
Saudia and Elizabeth, is that okay?
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
Elizabeth,
Works for me.
Take a nap.
take a nap, yeah.